This is the new drawing feature in IntelleChart Pro. I believe it's still in some form of beta, but I'm going to go over the parts or features that are missing for me and the things that behave differently that make it, at this point, still unusable for me. I have been checking back on it every once in a while for the last year or so, and there doesn't seem to have been much development in it. And so here we are in the IntelleChart Pro. And in the posterior segment section, normally to pull up IntelleDraw, we'd click on the little paintbrush icon here. It would launch the IntelleDraw application, which requires you to be running this in Microsoft Windows in order to do any drawing. My hope was that with this application, or with this revision where the feature is now built into IntelleChart, that we might be able to use this on non-Windows operating systems for charting. The new drawing features is opened by clicking the Draw button here, and it opens up inline right in the chart with the posterior segment. The layout's pretty familiar with the different findings on the sides, but they have moved the background to a separate tab up here. I don't find that really adds much functionality. It does eliminate some of the clutter. For instance, this column would go down, a whole nother box here to include the posterior segment findings. If everything was left the way it was in IntelleDraw. And I think that would actually probably be better, because moving back and forth between the two, I think it's easier for me with the scroll wheel to just scroll down a little bit more to pick up anything I want to change in the background, rather than having to click over here, change something. Like for instance, turning on the background, erasing part of the background where there's a detachment, and then coming back over to findings, and then going into the periphery and editing the detachment. So those sorts of things I think it would probably be better if this was just left in line with that, and then not have to have the background separated from the findings. The other things, as long as we're talking about the background, the other thing that's different about it is the way that the system handles transparencies. So in the default background and the backgrounds that I use, we use a transparent red to give it this lighter red coloration for the background. In IntelleDraw, the same default background is all one shade of red. It does not have these four kind of streaks in it. And this is due to the way the new system handles the transparencies. So in this system, anything that was done with one continuous stroke in the drawing is all considered the same transparency, even if the brush overlapped itself while drawing that. So this whole area is all one density of the transparency. Anything that was drawn separately with a separate stroke here, 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 and here are overlaid on that, and so the transparency is additive. So you can see where you went back to kind of fill in this white area, this uncovered area here. The areas where the paintbrushes overlap each other then get additive, and you see that there's a still transparent but more dense red color there. And then here where three strokes overlap each other, it's even more dense at that point. And we can show this by deleting these different strokes individually. So we go to select here, we can select the largest area of red and delete it. And then we're left with these four other strokes. And we can see here we can delete this one, and this one, and then this one. And you can see how they can be deleted one by one. So that is mainly a problem when your drawings from IntelleDraw are brought over and you see these strange areas that look totally different because of the way it's handling the transparency. And you'll have to go back and correct all of your drawings that were made with the old system, once you go to the new system as a default. The system also does not have transparency in it anywhere that I can find. I can change the pen sizes here, but I have no place to indicate transparency anywhere in the menus. So I like the transparency feature. I think probably the easiest way to implement it would be to have another ribbon of color here, where the other set of colors is all the transparent versions of these colors here. That would actually be simpler than the simple system that's being used in IntelleDraw right now, where there's a checkbox to indicate that you want transparency. So you have to click on the color you want, then you have to click on transparency. If you click to another color, transparency gets unchecked and you have to click it again. So if you want to do 2 colors in a row that were transparent, every time you click to another one, you have to transparency again. So that's kind of, it would just, I think, make it more efficient in movement if you just had a whole nother bar here that was for the transparencies, and you could just pick transparent dark blue, transparent light blue would be here, or transparent red. So that would be my suggestion for that. Let's see. Interesting that I can't reset that layer. I don't know what that's about. And then it just starts creating more layers. Let me delete that. Now can I reset it? No. Yeah, that's a strange behavior also. You know, ordinarily once you've modified the layer, you usually can reset it back to its default. I'm not sure why I can't do that in this case. Yeah, another bug that probably needs to be worked out. Delete that, and still can't reset it. I don't understand that. I'm not sure what that menu selection is for either. As over here, we just go to background, turn the background back on. Okay. Now, other things that are strange, or at least different, not necessarily better from the other system, are the way that things are selected in the new draw feature. I can, let's say I want to change one branch of this vascular pattern here. If I'm on the normal caliber in the vessels, it would be nice to be able to just erase this, as there is an eraser in the in IntelleDraw. There is no eraser function here, and there's also no white here where I could just kind of white it out. White probably wouldn't be the best solution to that, because it probably would also cover these markings under here, so it's not truly an erase. It really would be white, and it would cover up these clock hour markings in the template. So ideally, I think some form of erasing would be nice to have. So alternatively, the other way that I can do this is I can in selection, I can select on this arcade and then delete it. The delete behavior is now different also. It used to be that I could hit the delete key on the keyboard and it would delete it when it was selected, but now I hit delete, nothing happens. Try backspace, nothing happens there either. So I have to come up here and click on delete. Not the end of the world, but just different. And so this one, for some reason, I can reset that layer. And again, I can remove part of it, delete it, and reset it. And yeah, and that is consistent. I had changed the drawing originally, which is why it was different. And so now this is actually back to the original saved drawing pattern. The bigger problem becomes when you try to, you want to select like this entire element. Like let's say I want to get all of the blood vessels at the same time. In IntelleDraw, I can double click on this and it will automatically select everything in this layer or feature, whatever, this finding. So it'll select them all. That no longer works in the system. So you would think that I could then just maybe select all of them this way, but unfortunately the new selection tool no longer respects the different layers. So now I'm selecting everything, every finding in every layer that the selection box touches. So what I'm left with, if I want to change the size of the vessels, for in this case, I have to go and select each element while holding down the control key to get them all. And if it's just one or two strokes, that's not such a big deal, but in this case, I didn't make this drawing. I don't know how many strokes went into making those blood vessels, but I suspect I did not get them all just now. And when I try to scale it here, we find that, yeah, I'm right. This one and this one were separate, and those I did not select those when I went through and multi-selected by holding down Control. So that's kind of a problem too. And for something with 8 elements like this, and not such a big deal to control and hold everything and get everything. But in the case where we might have drawn in like panretinal photocoagulation, where you may have dozens and dozens of little marks here indicating the panretinal photocoagulation laser, to select each individual one is really not practical. So the other option that you would have, also not practical, would be to turn off everything except for, let's deselect this, so I could go in and I could turn off everything else that has a drawing associated with it, right? I could turn off all of these, the PVD, Andrews, and I guess basically I only have to turn off the stuff that's green, right? So I could turn all of those off. I also have to go into background then and turn off the background, fovea, aura. And now I could select just that and scale it and then flip everything back on and then you have your drawing back to the way it was. Not really a practical way to do this, especially when you're still trying to chart while communicating with your patients, what's wrong and what the plan is. It's a lot of time to spend, clicking through there and doing something that was much simpler to do in the previous system. Those would be the main things that are different or missing that really prevent me from using the system as it is. The lack of transparency really hurts. I really need to be able to draw things, some things in transparency. I think that's a great feature of this drawing, of the drawings in IntelleChart. And I like that the findings are in different layers usually, but just this new system doesn't seem to respect those layers. Because it was always nice to be able to just double click on the floaters from the PVD and move them around, and now I can't do that. I have to actually go in there and select them. Fortunately, in this case, it's only one thing. But again, if we had panretinal photocoagulation in here, so let's take that out and let's add PRP. Go back into drawing. Right, and now you see all the little marks here that represent the PRP. To select them and scale them, like maybe the PRP doesn't go all the way out to the edge, and I just want to make it a little bit smaller, kind of tighten it up so that you can see that there's a gap out in the periphery that's not treated. I don't even have to bother selecting that now. it is not really practical to control and try and get all of these, which I am certainly going to miss some of them by doing that. In that case, really my only recourse would be to do what we did before, which is get rid of these. No, you can't get rid of that way. Get rid of this way. All right, it'd be to get rid of all of this stuff that is drawn in here. Having to hit just that little eyeball is not the greatest target either. Probably be helpful if that was a little bit bigger. Then get rid of these guys. Oop, got rid of the PRP, didn't I? There. Okay, and then select, highlight, scale everything down. That's interesting. Okay. Scale everything down like that, and then come back through here, flip all these back on. And I have to remember which ones had stuff that I wanted. Let's see. Yeah, do I do this right? The last generation. And then I have to go back over to background and turn them back on as well. So again, another example of it would be simpler, even though I don't want to do this either, it would be simpler to have this background section down here. So I could have just kept clicking down here instead of having to bounce over to backgrounds and turn those off. So those are the things that are different or missing in the new drawing feature that really up to this point still make it unusable for me in a day-to-day setting with my patients. I'm very interested in having this in line with the rest of the IntelleChart, not having to launch IntelleDraw application and go into that to insert it and everything. But right now, this is not really workable for us. And for me personally, I'm trying to use this system. All right. Okay, well, I look forward to new improvements in that system. And it would be nice if it does prove to work in other operating systems like OS 10 and Linux in particular is one that we've been trying to use.